to touch on some things with um, the King Seven, Kevin Samuels. You know,
The phenomenon.
right? The phenomenon, the internet sensation, the viral
Yeah,
sensation.
he's like the red pill king right now.
Right. Facts.
You know what I mean?
My
And
man
there's
is
nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a little bit more assertive in taking control of your masculinity,
right.
and also allowing people to understand that it's deeper than your feelings. You know
Right.
what I mean? Sometimes you need a little taste of reality,
Yep.
and that's the hard part. That especially the way he delivers it. Sometimes it's not always about the tone.
Right.
It's about the message,
Right.
and
You
the
know,
messages don't be
listen.
delusional.
Right.
You did?
Don't kill the messenger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's the first thing they want to do. You know what I mean? That's the first thing they want to do to the gentleman. And
Yeah.
all he does is, make more money. You
Right.
know what I mean? Because all they do is every time somebody has something bad to say about Shorty, they got to say his name. And guess what? That brings more traffic to his page. And
Facts.
guess what? That gives an opportunity to spread more of his message.
Right. He
And it
running
ain't wrong.
every time they mention his name, he running it up. He running it up.
Yeah, and ain't nothing wrong with that. Like, but some of these gentlemen need to hear this. Some of these women definitely need to hear this.
Right. So that's the
They
thing I
just don't
want
like
to
the
talk about.
tone.
That's the thing I want to talk about because they
Yeah,
keep
go for it.
getting on him for the way he talks to women and how he deals with women. Oh, he deals with everybody like that. So it's not a gender specific
Everybody.
bias. Right. It's
At
like
all.
anybody can get it. You a woman,
Yeah.
bang. You a man, bang. Like
Yeah.
it's that simple.
Yeah. How I feel about it is just that I just don't like the fact that because you don't understand the message, you want to go into the fact, you want to start to shame him as far as like, oh, he must not like women or he
Yeah, I
must be
mean,
with
but
the funny
that's
bitch.
right. Yeah, that's the typical go-to. That is it's like a playbook that
Yeah.
that women all consult.
Mm.
Um, and that is their kind of like pushback or challenge or
Yeah.
like defense. That's their defense mechanism is to say,
Yeah.
oh, you don't even like women. You don't get no
Yeah.
women. You corny. You just mad because you don't get no right. So, but that allows them to kind of avoid dealing with the subject matter
Yeah. Yeah.
and what he's actually saying. That allows them to do that. It's the
Yeah.
perfect it's the perfect escape route.
Yeah.
It's like break glass here. Nigga, you don't get no bitches, like so, that's pretty much the way it works.
And it's unfortunate that they feel like that instead of really taking in to the discussion and really hearing and just getting some education, they have to deflect and try to run away from what the importance of the message is. It's like,
Right.
listen, not everybody qualifies. Not everybody qualifies. So you got to stay within your own parameters here.
Right.
You
And the
understand?
thing is,
I
listen,
mean, I understand everybody wants want to be great. And it's always everybody, especially like these women now, you know what I mean? They've all been told, baby, you beautiful, you a queen, you all this, that, and the other, but they never really took forth they never put within the effort
right.
to be
And
these
and then
queens.
and the other thing, it doesn't. So when it comes to men, if a man walked around and just said, "I'm a king, I
Mm,
deserve a queen,"
mm,
um, you know, I'm special,
mm.
I'm the greatest gift to this world, without
With Eric.
exhibiting any of like we don't have the luxury to just say that and
Mm,
people just support it just because you know every black man is great, right? So
mm.
you actually have to, if you're going to say that, you have like, so if a man comes along and says, hey, I demand respect, we have to earn the respect that we demand via,
Absolutely.
via handling our responsibilities, via, um, just accepting the responsibilities and that burden that comes along with demanding the respect. right?
Yes,
So I think a lot, and then you know, they all women that I was talking to my cousin, I was talking to Treese the other day, and she was like, "Well, a lot of women haven't dealt with them type of niggas, right?"
that's very true.
You know, and so they don't. The only thing they know is a man that demands respect, but doesn't, you know, handle his responsibilities and doesn't reciprocate the respect. And you know, I
Yeah,
had to,
that's true.
and I agreed with her, but I had to push back and say
You have to be.
that is true. But I had to push back and say, hey,
Mm,
there are also a lot of women who have dealt with that type of guy, the guy that doesn't really deserve the respect. But then when they get with a guy that
mm.
does deserve the respect and is a good dude, and handles his responsibilities, they have a tendency to you know, treat him a certain way or just be like, oh, he boring, he's corny, he's square, he this, he that.
Well, it's just
But
met with a lot of
and then
pushback
they
and
do him dirty.
disrespect. Yeah, it's like it's either met with a lot of pushback and disrespect just based off of their prior, prior
Right.
relationships.
Right.
They try to put everybody in a box. They try to put all men in a box. Like
Exactly.
we all want the same things. I mean, to a degree, they have a idea, but they don't have an idea. They think that we all want the same things, like as much as they do. They
Right.
believe that we want the same things as women do, and they
Right.
try to approach things as if they were like if they were in our shoes. This is what they would want. You know
Right.
what I mean? And it doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? It just doesn't work that way. And it's
Basically,
unfortunate. And they try to play what we want off as superficial, and I think
right.
that's just not cool. But
Yeah.
that's just
And,
how they play.
and both sides do that. So men do that too, because we try to play off a lot of the things that they want as superficial. And on both sides have valid points. So you got men that'll say, you know, because we can't just rag on women, you know, all day.
Oh,
But
no,
like
no, that wasn't my
you got
plan. That
no,
wasn't my plan. That was the
I
subject
know.
of man. I feel what
I'm
you. I
just
feel what you.
yeah. But you know, you got men that'll say, "Oh, all women want is a man that can provide for them. All women want is a guy that can do this, this, and that." That doesn't necessarily constitute a gold digger or gold
No,
digger energy, right?
nah.
That is just, you know, men should always feel, even if you can't do it currently, men should always feel the desire, right, to attain the level where they can protect their woman, they can provide for their woman. Not 100% like I'm paying for everything, because these days statistically you can't have a one income household. It's almost damn near impossible.
Yeah,
But yeah, but you have the desire to have a significant investment in providing for your woman, right?
mm,
So, oh, Marvin's about to get on now.
okay.
So yeah, so it goes both ways, right?
Mm,
Um, let me pause for a second.
go for it. Go for it.
So, so yeah, it goes both ways. But
Yeah.
women have a tendency to not understand men's side of it, and I think that's a result of the conversation in the public square
Mm,
is pretty much led by women, largely, right? So,
yeah.
talk
Yeah.
shows, books, social media,
Mm,
um, media in general, right? It's all
yeah.
kind of telling that woman perspective, because now we're in the era of, you know, woman is trending, right? Feminism is trending.
Yeah.
But and they talk about it from this man woman perspective.
Mm,
And the only time they really talk about it from a black man, black woman perspective is when they're shitting on black men, right? And they talk about patriarchy and chauvinism and sexism and all this stuff, but they don't realize like racism trumps all of that. And so black men really don't. I tell this day, I've never seen any empirical evidence to show that black men benefit from some sort of patriarchy, right? I don't care whether it's in employment. Now there's somewhat of a like a slight gap between the dollar amount that women get paid and the dollar amount that men get paid. When you disaggregate that to race, it's not like between black men and black
mm,
women. It's not really that big of a deal. And then when you look at the overall of like who's getting hired, there are a lot more women
mm,
getting hired than black men. right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, it depends on what we're talking about here, like what avenues of employment we're talking about. But I
Right,
mean, down the
right,
line, like that's kind of a loaded statistic though, you know, when they talk about we make more, this, that, the other. I mean, it's all about, like I don't see too many women out there in the construction field trying to go ahead
right,
and, I
right,
don't see too many women over here digging ditches, you dig?
right.
So
So
I
like,
mean, but I
so
never see them in the hospitals all day though. You
right,
feel me? That's you know what I mean. I see
right,
so many girls walking around here in scrubs like a motherfucker,
right.
but I
So yeah,
definitely
so
don't. Yeah,
it's like,
that's the disparity right there. You know
yeah,
what I mean? So,
it's a couple different industries like finance, of course, construction, hard labor jobs. Basically, it's basically finance and hard labor jobs, two industries where you'll
mm,
see, like it's majority men in those positions, right? But when it comes to like white collar, you know, and the white collar jobs are typically account for the majority of the high end wages. When you look
mm,
at all the wages. So, but not to get too wonky, but basically they will say like, oh, black men benefit from patriarchy and all this other stuff, but they don't parse out the race factor
yeah.
because they have this whole conversation with white women
Mm,
about patriarchy, and white women are dealing with something completely different than black women are dealing with, right?
yeah.
And black
Right.
black for a black woman to acknowledge patriarchy but not acknowledge racism and how it targets black men at every level of existence. If you're not
Mm,
talking about both, you ain't talking about shit, right? And that
yeah.
conversation is being led by people outside of your community that are trying to get you to be involved in something else, right?
Yeah.
So, but basically, yo, I actually had a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, man. You actually know her, I think. You might know her. I'm gonna say it offline. I'm gonna tell you offline.
Okay.
Um, but basically, we had a conversation. She was actually kind of we were talking about some social media strategy and marketing strategy, right?
Okay.
And so she has a position with Maryland State government,
Mm-hmm.
and she has a comm position, communications position, right?
Mm,
And I don't clock anybody's money, but she's actually told me like her salary range or whatever before because we was discussing like financial prudence and how to save and investing and all of this stuff because I started getting into that recently. So I know like around like ballpark, what her salary is, right? So we
mm,
were talking about this marketing stuff, but she is the type of woman who is very she didn't necessarily have a man around growing up that
okay.
it was an all woman environment.
Okay.
And so she didn't have a man around that, was a decision maker and would kind of like occupy that space of a man. And so she grew up and then she's had, certain dealings with men in the past that, have kind of left her a little bit, you know, bitter. So, and she's from
Yeah.
Philly. So Philly chicks mean the shit.
Yeah. Word. Word.
Yeah,
Tri-state. Always mean.
facts.
Yeah.
So we're having a conversation about marketing and shit, and I'm asking her like, some advice on some stuff I'm doing. I asked her for like some feedback on some stuff I've already done, and it's just all negative, right? And not negative in the sense of she's giving me, feedback and critiquing. I'm talking about negative in the sense
Mm,
of, um, talking about negative in the sense of, um, she's just kind of just saying bad things without any kind
mm,
of feedback. It's just like, I didn't like it, right? And so, which is not a surprise. I mean, I know her, so I've known her for a long time, so
okay.
I expected it. But I had that one point I had to tell her like, yo, you could have said some of the same things, but said it this way, and we could have had a conversation where we're building, right?
Mm,
Where you could have said like, hey, I thought it was cool what you've done so far, but this component is what I think is missing, right?
mm,
I had to literally press her to tell me specifically what did you not like. And so she
mm,
mentioned one thing that was missing, like a component that was missing. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I plan on doing that. But right now, I had to take care of this, and that first, right? And here are the results from what I've done so far. But yeah, I definitely plan on implementing that, right? That would have been a productive conversation. But instead, what she did was like, I don't like it. Mm-mm. I'm like, okay, so what did you not like? Well, it's just like because you could have done this and that and blah blah. So I'm like, okay, so could you be specific? Could you elaborate? And she's like, well, look, this is what I do for a living, Thomas. I market. This is
Okay.
my career. And
All
so
right, fair enough.
I'm like, oh, okay, I don't understand. How does that answer my question? Like I'm trying to get to the feedback part, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So she's like, I don't think you would understand the verbiage that I would use, and that's why I'm not elaborating. So
Oh,
at that point, I was just like, well, one, I just kind of like I had to lean on a little bit, and I was like, yo, there's nothing that will ever come out your mouth that will even come close to going over my head. So don't even think that that would ever be right because it's literally impossible. So, but then I was like, yo, but once we get past that, like, you have to understand, like, your approach to talking to, I don't know if it's people in general, but I definitely know it's definitely men. Your approach is a little bit counterproductive and
yeah.
and dysfunctional. It's dysfunctional.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's dysfunctional. So it's like this conversation would have went well. It could have went well, and we could have been building instead of you destroying whatever.
Yeah.
And instead of us doing that, we're now doing this, right? So I was like, you have to get to the point where you are able to
Yeah.
have these conversations. On top of the fact, then we got it. Then we get this spills over into the white collar independent black woman, right?
Oh,
And you
yeah.
talked about this on one of our old episodes where you were like, yo, y'all gotta understand, man, we don't really, that's not a flex for us. Like we not
Not
looking
at
at
all.
you like, oh, she got a good job. Yo, I like her. She's sexy. I mean, if you got a good job, there's nothing wrong with that. But you gotta, if you don't have these
Absolutely.
other things, if you don't know how to talk to people, if you're not amicable,
Yeah.
if you can't
Yeah.
inspire me and support me,
Yeah.
right? Then I really don't
Yeah.
like. I'm cool, right?
But like a high paying job is nothing more than the cherries, baby. That's all it is. It's the
There's nothing
cherries,
more than a
yo.
what?
It's just the cherries, baby. It's the
Right,
cherries on top. You
right,
dig?
right. Exactly,
I
exactly.
can do without it. Like
Right,
I don't necessarily need them.
right.
I like vanilla ice cream by itself most of
Yeah.
the time.
Like
I don't need the cherry.
I never sent any dessert back because it didn't have a fucking cherry on the top. I never did that before.
You
I was
feel me?
never like, yo, where's the cherry?
Where in the fuck is my goddamn cherry? No, never have I ever, never have I ever. So
Never
like,
ever.
so
Ever ever?
basically that's what it boils down to. Like, and I think that once they reach that particular plateau and they get that dollar amount that they've always trying to to achieve and there's nothing wrong with that. You got achievements. You should be proud of that.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
you should let that run your everyday approach to men and make you feel like you got the nutsack now. Check it
Right.
out, baby girl. You don't. You
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
And it's not even, and I don't even like to use the word submissive as much because that's a trigger word for a lot of women,
Right.
especially
But
in that.
but you know what I like to use? I like to
What
use
you
because submissive ain't got shit to do with it. You can be a strong black woman. You can be
yeah.
a woman that's very opinionated, that has her own thoughts, things
Mm.
independently. But when you start to become uncooperative, right?
Mm. Yeah.
Because it's not about submissive, it's about cooperation, right? If we're together, if we're a team, and I notice that every time I have, an idea, or every time
Mm.
I, ask for some feedback, or every time I try to come to the table with you so we can chop it up and build
Mm.
together, I notice that you're not very cooperative, right? So like
Yeah.
this, it's always just kind of like this tug of war, right?
Yeah.
And that's the energy that really doesn't mesh well with niggas, man.
I mean, yeah,
With
and I think that
with real ones, because a lot of simp niggas they'll put up with that, but you know,
yeah, but that's that all stems from, and I think it really is a lot of it has to do with our prior generation and the lack of black men being in that household,
right,
giving an
exactly,
example.
Exactly.
You know, and that's what it really all ends up. It's that prior generation that just didn't want to give the tools. You know, they rather just go ahead and plant the seeds and shit like that, but nobody wanted to cultivate. And that is the issue. You know what I'm saying? And now we have a generation of women that had to, you know, they had to put the culture on their back in order for us to push forward. But now they think that, you know, because they did that, we're obsolete in some kind of way, or we're less than in some kind of way. We don't have anything to contribute, or our opinions don't matter, or they're not to say that we're not equal or anything like that. But in a household with a man and a woman, and I don't want to sound misogynistic when I say this, but it's just it's a truth, I believe.
Yeah, it's a
like
fact.
A man should be, you know, the bottom line decision maker, you know, when it comes to, you know, subjects. Not to say that your opinion doesn't matter. Not to say that what you have to say doesn't push, you know, doesn't push the needle. But what I do believe is that you need to bring that to the table. We discuss it. And if I feel like it makes sense and you really believe in what you're saying, then yeah, we can go all about it. But at the end of the day, like, that man in your household, especially if he's a man, like a man, he needs to be able to make those decisions. You understand what I'm saying? And unfortunately, a lot of these women, especially when they get into these upper echelon jobs, these high paying jobs, they may be leaders in what they do. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You don't trust the leadership of the man, which in turns, you know, they don't have cooperation, which in turns combativeness in the household. And it never
but you know what? And I said to a friend of mine not too long ago, I was like, man, what's so unfortunate is, you know, because a lot of women these days, especially above the Mason-Dixon line, unfortunately, they haven't been even raised to, you know, to occupy the space of a matriarch in a household, and occupy the space of a divine feminine woman to their husband, right? But they have been trained to work hard, to get that good job, to get that education, to get all that stuff, right? And so I was like, man, you know, it's unfortunate because honestly, I feel like a lot of women these days, man, they only bring value to the white man that hired them and that cuts their checks. But when it comes to providing that value for a husband, for a father, for their children, that's where there's a deficit a lot of times. And I'm not talking about all women. I'm talking about one in aggregate, right? Because there are a lot of women that can do both, right? But above the Mason-Dixon line, it's spooky.
They're a different breed, and they just weren't raised in those households to see the innermost workings of a man and a woman work out together in a household. They never got a chance to see that. They probably were dealing with a single mother who, you know, probably was bitter about her husband cheating on her or leaving or going to prison or whatever reason why they didn't work out. And then she had her own type of ideals that she kind of passed down to her children. You know what I mean? And that's why there's an apprehension, especially when it comes to trust with our Black women nowadays. They don't trust our Black men because they weren't ever around. So they never learned what the trust was, where a place of a man in the household is supposed to be. They thought they saw their mom do that part. So they felt like they had to do it too.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
And that's a conversation I've had with a lot of different women. And, you know, I don't discount that. I just say, look, it ain't your fault, but now it is our problem. So we need to fix it, right? Just like most issues in the Black community. It ain't our fault, it is our problem, right? And if we don't actively try to address it and fix it, it will be our fault. You know, and this is the thing, man. It's like, I mean, you pretty much touched on all the points I was about to say about, like, you know, being feminine and occupying the space of that divine feminine, right? That muse that is there.
I was just about to say that. Black women are just supposed to play inspiration.
Right. And that's not to say, because they'll push back against that a lot of times and say, oh, well, you just want me to be your inspiration. You don't want me to get out here and be, you know, a professional and be carve out my own way within my own right. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
but that's a part of it.
That shouldn't take precedence over your natural and innate value that you bring to the table. And a lot of Black women have a tendency to believe, just like this is one of the first points you made. So I'll just reiterate. A lot of Black women have a tendency to believe that the value that they appreciate from us is the same value that we appreciate from them. We don't appreciate the same things from you that you appreciate from us. We appreciate things about women that we love. You appreciate things about men that you love, right? Mm-hmm. If you come to the table with, and you're established professionally, mm-hmm. And you make a decent amount as far as income, and you're in a position where you don't need to be supported financially, right? Mm-hmm. We're not going to look at that and say, oh, well, that's a turnoff. Now, some niggas will, but I mean, that's we're not talking about that, right? Yes. That's not something that is a turnoff for us. What is a turnoff is the way you move around men, bruh. As a result of that professional, space that you occupy, right? So no, look, let me finish. Yeah. So at that point, we start to realize, like, oh, the job is fine, but what are you bringing to the table that makes me happy, right? Yeah. Are you a nurturer? Are you supportive? Are you disagreeable? Are you argumentative? Do you always challenge me, right? Are you able to allow me to occupy the space of a man? Are you able to take guidance from me? Are you able to put our heads together like two adults, right? Mm. And we build together, right? Yes. A lot of Black women are not able to do that. Nah. And in fact, and also, are you want to lead? Right. Are you able to allow a man to take the lead? And a lot of them, what they'll say is, well, I mean, these niggas don't want to take the lead. These niggas they just out here, acting up and doing dumb shit. These niggas not even, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the man that tried to lead and you wouldn't let him. Mm. And you challenged him at every turn, right? Mm. You would not accept his wisdom, his guidance, right? Yeah. Yeah. And what ended up happening is he finds out, like, oh, you aren't really accustomed to taking guidance from a man, or at least you're not accustomed to being open to a man being a decision maker, to a man taking a lead role. You're not accustomed to it. And a lot of that is a result of Black women growing up in households where they didn't have a man in the household that was making decisions, right? So I don't take anything away from that. I don't say that, oh, well, this just came out of nowhere and you women are deficient. No, we can definitely acknowledge that it comes from a very real place. But once we acknowledge that, how do we fix it, right? Yeah,
because what you went through and your upbringing has no direct reflection on what I'm attracted to. And right. That's all well and fine. Like, I love your PhDs and I'm so happy that makes you feel accomplished in life. But I really want to see you turn around in that dress.
Respectfully, bro.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But let's be real. But let's be realistic here, yo. Let's be realistic here. No, yeah. Men are visual. No, I'm just being honest here. No, men are visual. Yeah. Men are visual. Those are the things that really bring it home. The nurturing is all is the next step. Like the nurturing, the supportive, being agreeable and all. Those are all the next steps. Those are all catered to the femininity of you. And those are very important factors. Right. You know what I'm saying? They are extraordinary important factors. And these are what hold a man. Right. You know what I'm saying? These are the things that hold a man. The turnaround in the dress is what gets my attention. But what holds me is all these other things, these other true values. Your PhD is not going to hold me. Right. The PhD is just going to make you feel confident and make you walk around with your head up all high. And then it also makes you feel as though you got way to challenge me and my leadership because you feel like you got more education.
Right. And
They will
let's,
apply.
I mean, let's, respectfully, because I pushed back against that initial statement before you, rounded it out just now. But
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I pushed back initially because you don't want to basically speak about women as though they are just an object, right?
No,
Now, right.
I'm speaking from the
But you
perspective
explained
of
it.
being men. Like I don't
Right.
I think the
You
fundamental
explained
problem
it.
that women have with men is that they don't understand men. They don't understand what drives us. They just,
Right.
like you said before, they try to find, they think that we should be attracted to the things that bring attraction to them. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like
But and the
it
reason
doesn't work that way.
and the reason that they aren't able to understand what we want is because, and this is something I talk about all the time, especially when I get into conversations with, uh, I guess, women that kind of lean more towards the feminist side of things, is
Oh man.
that, when we talk about, you know, gender, issues
Mm,
of gender, especially issues of gender in the Black community, the
mm,
conversation is pretty much, uh, it's led, it's basically centered around women's perspective, right?
yeah.
Conversation is never, when you read books about it, when you watch TV shows about it, when you see movies about it, when you see it on social media, the conversation is never around how do we fix men, how do we fix women, how do we fix us. The conversation typically centers around what are men doing wrong? How have men messed me up? How have men
Well, that's
blah blah?
changing now. That narrative is changing now.
Well, it is changing now.
It's
But
changing.
what I'm saying is it's gradually changing.
Mm,
But the reason that women aren't in a position where they understand men and understand what men want is because the conversation has not been interested in understanding what men want, right? The
mm,
conversation has always been, well, not always, because when you talk about the 60s and the 50s and all that stuff, it was all dictated by, patriarchy and chauvinism and
oh
all
yeah,
that
it was
stuff.
all about male dominance at one
Right.
point. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah. So, but at this particular junction, we're at the point where there's never really, a conversation where women have to be have to confront correction, have to confront um, the ways that they need to make amendments to their behavior and to
Mm,
their ideology and to their thought process
mm.
to be better women, right? It's always, how have you been taken advantage of? It's always, you're a victim. And so how can we, make you feel better? So typically it's a conversation that revolves around coddling as opposed to admonishing, right? When you admonish somebody, you're like, look, I'm saying this in love. I want you to win.
Mm,
And you need to hear this. Because if you
mhm.
don't hear this right now, if you don't get this work now, you ain't gonna win. And
Yeah.
you have a lot of women that end up, single, and they don't realize until like 35, 36, 37, or divorced or whatever the case may be. And there's never a conversation that is had about, why didn't your relationships work out and what part did you play in that? Right? What was your role?
Accountability, sir. That's what it's all about.
Accountability. And the thing is, when it comes to Black
That's
men,
one thing.
when it
That's
comes,
one thing
listen,
we don't have a
when
lot
it
of.
comes to Black men being, and this is something I say all the time, when it comes to Black men being held accountable, there are very real consequences for Black men having bad behavioral patterns, right?
Mm,
Or acting in ways that are unproductive, or being emotionally unstable, right? Or being combative. There's all kinds of consequences. You get combative at work as a Black man, your days are numbered. You will be fired eventually, right? You get combative out in the street, or you don't have control over your emotions outside. Guess what? Throw these handcuffs on. It's your turn. We're locking your dumb ass up, right?
talk about it.
If you're in school as a Black male or a Black boy, and you acting up in school, guess what, sir? You're suspended. We're gonna go ahead and put you in the school to prison pipeline. So just get ready for it because it's coming, right? We have all kinds of consequences for things. Now, women, on the other hand, do not have those equal consequences. And I don't want them to have the same consequences, right? I
Mm,
don't want them to have the same consequences of being locked up, murdered by the cops, even though they do get murdered by the cops. But if you look statistically, it's a big disparity. I don't want them dealing with the same consequences. They're women. You see what I'm
mm,
saying? but at the same token, the lack of consequence has placed them in a position where they always feel as though every time someone tries to correct them and correct their behavior, it's seen as a challenge. It's seen as an attack. And they never view it as, oh, they have my best interest in mind, right? Because as a society, we don't hold them accountable, right? And so that just plays out in a lot of this stuff where they end up blaming everything on men and end up finding themselves in a bad situation. And that is not 100% of the time. But what I'm saying is, on an aggregate, there are women that have definitely been done wrong. And as a result, they are single. I'm saying on an aggregate, you will find that a lot of these Black women who claim victim have actually done some things to contribute to the fact that they have not found a man, right?
Oh man, talk about it.
So, I just want to, this is a Valentine's Day episode. I really wanted to touch on those things because I feel like it's important. And it's not important to place blame. It's important to grow and to get to the point where we can rock, and we can build together because it's necessary, and like we all make mistakes. We all mess up, but we all got to deal with those, and we gotta, in order to build, we gotta confront them. So. Yeah, if you want to say anything to kind of wrap that segment up? I mean, you pretty much covered it all.
I mean, we covered it all. I mean, it just really boils down to, like, at the end of the day, the one thing I think that's just most important is just like, let's stop the narrative of Black men and our choices are the reason why Black women are single. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we're not trying to say that women are combative or any type of way that, the mad black woman type of deal. Like, nah, we're not saying that at all.
Right.
We're just just understand your place and why you're single. And that's all I want to say.
Right.
That's all I want to say. Just like understanding your place and why you're single. Always start in the mirror first. Before you start pointing that finger, always start in the mirror first. And what could I have done differently? Or what is it that a man is really looking for versus he should want me because I have this. So I bring this to the table when those particular things are meaningless to us. You know what I mean? Like, just understand what a man wants before you start telling us what anything else. Before you start blaming us, understand what a man wants first.
Yep. And I was talking to my stepsister Kia, and I was talking to her, and I said to her, I was like, yo, because she's kind of transitioning right now as far as relationship wise, and I'm like, yo, listen, and this is not something that I was telling her because she didn't already know it. I was just confirming it for her. But I was like, yo, you out here building. Right, you've reached levels of success as far as professionally, personally, all those things. You've grown, and I'm proud of what you're doing. And so now you're at the point where the next relationship you get into, you won't be getting into the relationship because, oh well, there's a void that I'm trying to fill, and only a man can fill it. You'll get into that relationship because it's like I'm good, and he will make me even better. Because he's a value add. I see a value add here. I've grown from what I've been through, and I'm okay being with or without. So if you come along and I see we can build together, you can build on what I already am building. Say less. Let's rock. Let's make it happen. So so I mean that's the place that a lot of both women and men got to get to. I'm about to. All right, so this is for, because we love Black people, we love Black men, we love Black women, pause, but we love the Black community, right?
Absolutely.
And we want to see, Black people have a tendency to have these gender wars, right? And a lot of these gender wars are, influenced by. It's a lot of myths, it's a lot of mythology, it's a lot of opinion, it's a lot of stereotypical rhetoric that kind of shapes the conversation. And so basically, we want to clear that up. And so there's an article that came out recently The title of the article is "The Top 4 Myths About Black Marriage." All right. So, and this allows us to have a conversation that is centered around, facts and data, not feelings and opinion, right? Two different things. All right. And the biggest difference in those two things is one is effective, productive. The other one is ineffective and counterproductive. I'll let you all decide which one is which. All right, respectfully. Okay, first myth: Black women don't marry. All right. So, all right. So, in the article, it says that there's a statistic where Yale University found, I don't know what year this was done in, it doesn't cite the year, but there was a Yale University study that found that just 42% of Black women are married, right? And it also says there's a variety of high profile news and networks such as CNN and ABC that picked up on the figure and ran with it. But there are two researchers out of Howard University, shout out to HU. What's that, the Bisons?
No. What the fuck is Howard? I thought the Bisons was Morgan, yo.
Okay, I could be wrong. I
don't know.
Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Anybody from HU, Morgan, I know everybody's very passionate about the HBCUs, so no disrespect, only respectfully. All right, but yeah, shout out to HU. We love HU. But two researchers out of HU, Howard University, Ivory Tolson and Bryant Marks, because I want to give them credit for this, questioned the accuracy of the finding, right? It's saying 42% of women don't get married or never get married, right? So, right? So when you're looking at data, you have to look at, like the sample size, what was included in the sample size. If you're including women 18 years, actually, and it's women 18 years of age or older. So you're including 18 to 23. That's a whole 5 years where women typically, like,
that's start time, baby. That's start time, baby.
Exactly. Yeah. They in these streets. They outside. They in these streets.
Yeah, so they just cracking that straw into the juice box. They don't know nothing about it yet. They getting used to it.
They just getting off the Capri Suns at that point.
You feel me? They just getting off the Capri Sun. They
just getting past the oh man, what's the joints that look like a little barrel, and you take the
quarter waters, my G.
Quarter waters. You feel me?
Yeah, they just getting off the quarter waters, G.
But look, back to the facts, back to the data. So once they removed that demo, 18 years and older, right? Once they removed, I think it says Tolston and Marks found that 75% of Black women married before they turned age 35. 75%.
Okay.
So we see the difference, and that is a very significant spike in the amount of women that are getting married when you just took out the unreasonable demo of 18, and above, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first myth, that Black women aren't getting married, right? Second myth is this: educated Black women have it harder. So basically what the article says is this is a myth. So it says getting a college degree is the worst thing a Black woman can do if she wants to get married, right? And then it says not exactly. News stories about Black marriage often mention that more Black women pursue higher education than Black men by a 2-to-1 ratio, according to some estimates. But what these articles leave out is that white women also earn college degrees more than white men do. And this gender imbalance hasn't hurt white men's chances at matrimony. What's more, Black women who finish college actually improve their chances of marrying rather than lower them. right?
Mhm.
So the data actually shows that Black women increase their chances of marrying by getting educated, right? Which is pretty much the polar opposite of the myth of, well, you know, if I get a good, you know, paying job and I have a degree, then I'll end up alone because Black women just can't, I mean, Black men just can't keep up with me, right?
Mm.
So here's the stat on that. Among black women, 70% of college graduates are married by 40,
Mm.
whereas only about 60% of black high school graduates are married by that age, right?
Mm.
That pretty much pushes back against the myth that Black women can't get married, right? Then it
Mm.
also says that the same trend is at play for Black men. In 2008, 76% of Black men with a college degree married by age 40. 76%, right?
Mm. Mm.
In contrast, only 63% of Black men with just a high school diploma tied the knot. Okay, so the last thing, so basically what they're saying is, because I'll just wrap it up real quick, put it in a short condensed version, is that not only are Black women, not only is it a myth that Black women have a tougher time getting married when they have degrees and when they are more, they've reached more academic accolades. Not only is that a myth, but it also, the opposite is true. They actually increase their possibility of getting married when they're educated, right? So the last thing is, and this is something that Black women, you know, have a tendency to talk about. We're here in talk shows. They've written books about it. You know, you'll see all kinds of stuff on social media about it. But whenever they talk about it, it's never accompanied by like any sort of like, again, data or facts. So they'll say something like, you know, Black successful men do not marry Black successful women because they're too busy marrying outside of their race, right? They get with these white women, they get with these Asian women, right?
Okay.
Turns out that that's not.
Well, I mean, how many? What's the stat on them actually marrying Black men though?
That's
Like,
what we're talking about.
okay, I'm about to say, like, if that's the stat of
So,
them marrying Black men and just not being married in general, then okay, I got you. I follow you.
right. So look, that's the myth side of it, right? So this is what they found about that. The title of this section of the article is "Rich Black Men Marry Out," right? Which means rich Black men marry outside of their race.
Mm.
All right. All right. So listen, this is what the article says about that. Black men drop Black women as soon as they reach a certain level of success. Don't they? Question mark. This is what the article says. While plenty of Black rap stars, athletes, and musicians may choose to date or marry interracially when they achieve fame, the same is not true for the bulk of successful Black men, right? So basically, the everyday Black man who's just making, you know, six figures or close to six figures or above 60K, because when you look at the data on Black, you know, income, you know, to be in the top 80th percentile, you can make like 60, 70K and you're like making more than a lot of other people. So it says, by analyzing census data, Tolson and Marks found that 83% of married black men who earned at least 100,000 annually are hitched to Black women, basically meaning they're married to Black women, right? 83%. That is an overwhelming majority, right? The same is the case for educated Black men of all incomes. 85% of Black male college graduates married Black women. 88% of married Black men, no matter their income, educational background, or whatever, have Black wives, right? This means that interracial marriage should not alone be held responsible for the singleness of Black women. So basically, I'm just gonna go ahead and sum up the article. I think that's pretty much it. Let me make sure Black men don't, oh shit, they got another one here. Okay, so the next one is Black men don't earn as much as Black women. I'm looking forward to this one. All right, so the last and final point is, so they're addressing the myth that black men don't earn as much as black women.
That was a myth?
Yeah, so they're saying that so the myth is basically that black women that are earning, that are, you know, white collar in the white collar space or whatever, it's hard for them to find a black man because one, they're marrying white women. Two, the rest of them just aren't making any money, so they can't keep up with
Okay. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So basically, what the article says is, so to push back against that, it says actually black men are more likely than black women to bring home at least 75K annually, right? Also, double the amount of black men than black women make at least 250K annually, right?
Okay.
Now, 250K annually, and this is all right. So that's me running through the whole article. Now we can get into the discussion part of it. My thing about there's a gender glass ceiling when it comes to black men and black women. In my opinion, I haven't looked at the data on it, but in my opinion, the gender gap when it comes to black people doesn't come in until you reach the executive level, and then you'll see, like, you know, men are more welcomed in that space than women, right?
Okay.
And so you're gonna have more black men that make 250K plus than black women, because at the exec level, that gender gap really comes in pretty hard.
Yeah.
Prior to that level, black women a lot of times are hired more often than black men, because the race pay gap and the race hire gap hits black men harder than it does black women, right?
Okay.
But that's a side note. But now we're going to deal with the actual article. So we got 3 myths that were just busted in this article, right?
Yeah.
The myth that black men, successful and unsuccessful, may marry outside of their race, and that's what makes it hard for women to find marriage. The other myth is black men don't make as much as black women, and so therefore, if you're a successful black woman, you cannot find a mate that matches your your income level, right? That's the second myth.